The X-Files was a very popular science fiction series that aired on the Fox network from 1993 to 2002 and stars David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson as FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully respectively as they investigate paranormal and bizarre crimes. I only caught an episode here and there as a child of the 90s, but haven't sat down to watch the entire series just yet. I do plan on watching the entire series, but before I could, I was sent a link to an article describing the only X-Files episode to be given a TVMA parental advisory as well as a viewer discretion warning. So without reading into the plot, I decided to skip ahead to the season 4 episode titled Home, set in a quiet little town known as Home, Pennsylvania, which is a real place with a population of around 13 million today, even though the sheriff in the episode claims there's only a few hundred residents, probably just to play up the small town vibe. I have no idea what the population was in the 90s, and frankly, I don't care enough to find out. The episode opens on a dilapidated house in the middle of a thunderstorm. Inside, a mother is giving birth to a baby surrounded by three grotesque-looking men. These are the Peacock brothers, and we'll get to the mother later in the video. One of them cuts the umbilical cord, and the three Peacock brothers take the baby outside in the rain. You can see the baby's adorable little mutant fingies reaching through the blanket as it cries. One of the brothers holds the baby while one prepares a shallow grave. The third brother turns his back and begins sobbing, so I have to assume this one is the child's father. After the theme song plays, we cut to a group of kids playing baseball in a field adjacent to the Peacock's property. And you know this is a 90s show because one kid runs full speed towards a barbed wire fence to chase down a home run. Like, if this kid had tripped, he'd be mistaken for one of the Peacock brothers himself. In most movies or shows of the era, the kid chasing the ball would have been bullied into going onto the property to retrieve the ball, but instead these kids all give a collective fuck that look and just get another ball. That's how you know this isn't some haunted house urban legend the kids thought up. They know if they go on that property, shit could actually get real. So the blonde kid steps up to bat again, even though he literally just hit a home run, and digs his K-Swiss shoes into the dirt so he can lose another ball because this kid's just an asshole, I guess. And just like old Jed shooting at some food, up from the ground came a bubbling crude, and instead of oil, it's just baby blood. You can see its little mutant fingies again, reaching up through the soil. Cut to Agent Mulder and Scully investigating the makeshift baseball field. While Scully's doing her job and talking about some nerdy forensics BS, Mulder reminisces about how good his childhood was playing baseball with his sister and eating bologna sandwiches while literally standing next to an infant's grave where a dozen children were just scarred for life. Meanwhile, the Peacocks are ominously watching Mulder and Scully from their front porch. Mulder mentions how he'd love to live in a town like this, and Scully responds that it would be a lot like living in Mayberry. When I shit you not, the sheriff rolls up and introduces himself as Andy Taylor. I have to say that Sheriff Andy has got to be the worst sheriff ever. When asked if he investigated the Peacocks, whose house is like 50 feet from the crime scene, he's just like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. He goes on to say that he assumes the Peacock brothers' parents are dead because they got into a car accident and the brothers just took the bodies home and nobody questioned it. When pressed on this, Sheriff Andy describes the Peacock home as built after the Civil War with no power, running water, or heat. He says the family keeps to themselves, raising and breeding their own stock, if you know what I mean, and just writes it off saying that they're so feeble-minded they wouldn't even know what we're talking about. Sheriff Andy's entire reasoning for not investigating this crime is that it would bring unwanted attention to his quiet little hometown. Absolutely the worst sheriff ever. Mulder and Scully need to examine the body for the investigation, so we jump to the sheriff's office, and I wish I was joking, but the baby is literally in a break room refrigerator between a sack lunch and a couple cans of Spam. Sheriff just writes it off like, yeah, we don't have a morgue, so we just put the baby in the fridge next to our lunch. Again, worst sheriff ever. So Sheriff Andy says they don't have a morgue or a lab and takes Mulder and Scully to a room he describes as a bit cleaner. It's literally just a bathroom. On our way to said bathroom, we bump into, and I swear I'm not making this up, Deputy Barney. But not Barney Fife like you and I and Mulder were thinking. No, this is Deputy Barney Pastor. So they take the baby into the bathroom on a Taco Bell tray. Mulder asked why they couldn't just do this in the sheriff's office. Sheriff Andy replies he didn't want anybody to pop in and see it. So Mulder asks why he didn't just lock the door, to which Sheriff Andy replies, folks around here know I don't lock my office door. And then, literally no one ever locks the bathroom door, completely defeating the purpose of this entire conversation. So Mulder and Scully start poking around at the little mutant baby. They completely show the entire thing. I'm not going to, but just imagine an overcooked chicken with goat feet and 3 fingers, and that's pretty accurate. Scully starts spouting off a bunch of medical terms describing the baby's numerous birth defects, and Mulder begins to rule out murder due to said defects as the cause of death, but while poking around at the little mutant, Scully discovers dirt in the nose and lungs, indicating that the child had been buried alive. Of course, we, the audience, knew this from the opening scene. Outside the sheriff's office, Mulder and Scully have a conversation that leads to Mulder bragging about his genetics and tries convincing Scully that this isn't an FBI problem and that they should just let the incompetent Sheriff Taylor handle it. Mulder and Scully then rationalize this as a kidnapping case as there's no Peacock sister, the mother has been presumed dead for 10 years, and these leather-faced looking dudes probably have never procreated with a willing participant in their lives. Their sole rationale for continuing their investigation is literally that the Peacock brothers are too ugly to get laid. Mulder and Scully arrive at the Peacock house to investigate further because Sheriff Andy sure as hell isn't going to do it. There's a disembodied pig head on the front steps, so at least they decorated for the occasion. There's also an old Cadillac in the front yard. Keep that in mind, it'll be important later. Also, Cadillac wrote the producers a thank you letter for featuring one of their cars so prominently in this episode, so that's nice, I guess. Mulder knocks on the glass door, and since no one answered, he attempts to walk in, and Scully stops him, saying they don't have probable cause, which at this point, I think I might disagree. Mulder shines a flashlight through the glass door and notices a pair of bloody scissors, so the two strap up and enter the rundown Peacock home. Inside, they find a bloody boot print that matches the one at the crime scene. As they look around the house completely unimpeded, they neglect to find the person watching and listening to their every move inside the home. Cut to Mulder and Scully inside a hotel room. While once again we see Scully actually doing her job and talking to Sheriff Andy on the phone about arrest warrants and running the VIN number on the Cadillac, Mulder is busy fiddling with the TV antenna trying to get better reception so he can watch a random nature documentary. Shortly after, Sheriff Taylor removes his revolver from the flimsiest lockbox ever, and I mean flimsy, like this thing is one flathead screwdriver away from a evidence bag itself. Sheriff Taylor confirms his gun is loaded and locks it back in the box. Shortly after, the Peacock brothers hop in their caddy and drive on over to Sheriff Andy's house. The brothers walk right in because, in Sheriff Andy's own words, no one locks their doors in home Pennsylvania. When hearing the brothers in the house, Sheriff Andy attempts to run across the house to retrieve his gun to defend himself and his wife from the brothers. Instead, he grabs a baseball bat and proceeds to assault the brothers. One of them takes the bat from Sheriff Andy and proceeds to beat him to death with his own bat. Remember kids, proper firearm storage is important, but if you have to run across your home to retrieve it, it's basically worthless. The brothers then flip over the Taylor's bed and unalive the Mrs. Taylor for good measure. Remember kids, never leave any witnesses. Mulder and Scully roll up to the Taylor home in their Buick, and Mulder immediately notices tire tracks in the yard left by a big American car. Deputy Barney is sitting on the front porch and tells the agents that the Cadillac had been reported stolen by the owner after she ran out of gas and abandoned it on the highway, and presents them with the DNA lab results they had ordered on the baby the day before. I don't know how that's logistically possible, but whatever. While Mulder examines Sheriff Taylor's body, Scully gets all pissy because the DNA lab surely made a mistake, because this is the DNA of a baby that could have only resulted from several generations of direct inbreeding and the impregnation of a female from the Peacock family, which there aren't any, so this must mean it's a kidnapping case. Deputy Barney volunteers to take Mulder and Scully to the Peacock home because he just has a boner for violence at this point. Mulder and Scully discuss how the brothers could have possibly known that Sheriff Taylor issued warrants for their arrest if they were alone when they mentioned it in the Peacock home. Remember that person secretly watching them? I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Meanwhile, back at the Peacock home, the three brothers all drop their pants and give a speech about this being their home and their intention of keeping it that way. It's implied that the three brothers ran a train on the mystery person hidden in the house, but obviously this being a TV broadcast, it wasn't directly shown or said. The next day, Mulder and Scully and Deputy Barney are preparing to enter the Peacock home to arrest the three brothers. Deputy Barney throws on a bulletproof vest, and when questioned by Scully, he replies, "I've seen them fire muskets before, and I, for one, am not getting taken out by some antique." The good news is, Deputy Barney won't have to worry about that. The bad news is that after going full-on Solid Snake up to the Peacock's front door, Deputy Barney takes an axe straight to the throat because the door was booby-trapped. The Peacock brothers move in on the deputy and beat him to death with their bare hands, while Mulder repeats the script of the nature documentary he watched in the hotel the night before. The plan shifts from infiltration to diversion as Mulder and Scully release the Peacock's hogs to get them out of the house. While the Peacock brothers are rounding up the hogs, Mulder and Scully move in towards the house. Mulder pushes the door open with a 2x4 and a pipe swings across the entrance and slams into the door, shattering the glass and making this loud-ass noise, and some fucking how the brothers didn't notice this at all. Mulder and Scully move through the house when Mulder suddenly stops and says, "Oh no," like he just stumbled upon something horrific. But no, it's just an old newspaper that says Elvis is dead. A noise is heard from the bedroom and the agents bust in, guns drawn. They look around at all the family pictures hanging on the wall. There's Scary Terry, Scary Brandon, and Scary Melissa. Then Mulder notices this deep scratch on the floor leading to the bed. He looks under, and there's an elderly woman strapped to a piece of plywood screaming at them to get out. Mulder pulls her from under the bed, and we see that this woman has a few genetic defects of her own aside from missing her arms and legs. Mulder tells her to calm down, they're going to help her and get her home, to which Scully replies, "She is home. It's Mrs. Peacock. It's their mother." The Peacock brothers and their mother and the infant that started this whole thing were all the result of at least 100 years and several generations of inbreeding, and by God, they are proud of it. Mrs. Peacock tells Scully about how she lost her arm in the car accident and how the boys sewed her up just like the family learnt in the War of Northern Aggression, and how it didn't feel any different than making breakfast. Oh my God. The brothers bust into the home, and just when Mulder is about to take a chair to the back of the head, Scully shoots the boy, but immediately comes back to life like fucking Jason Voorhees, and I'm not even gonna lie, there is some resemblance there. Scully unloads a full mag into the boy, and it barely does anything, while Mulder tussles with the two of them. Mulder falls to the ground and shoots him in the face, and the other one chases Scully down the hallway and deletes himself on one of their own booby traps. Scully notices new scratches on the floor and realizes the third brother, the mother, and the Cadillac are all missing. The episode ends in the middle of the night. We zoom in on the Cadillac parked on the side of the road, while Mrs. Peacock whispers in the trunk, like she's literally in the trunk, that they'll start a new family somewhere else. The last surviving Peacock brother climbs out of the trunk and whips the caddy down a dirt road, and that's it. Half the Peacocks got away to never be heard from or seen again. So my closing thoughts on this episode. Yeah, I can kind of see why this would get a TVMA warning. I can kind of understand why they wouldn't want to air this twice, as this is pretty fucked up. You know, it's not any worse than any other like horror movie, but this being broadcast TV, I can kind of understand why they wouldn't want to show this more than once. However, if you do want to watch it for yourself, it is on Amazon Prime. You can go watch it right now. It's season 4, episode 2. I don't really have much else to say about it. It's a pretty disgusting episode. The baby murder in the beginning is pretty sad. The whole situation that this family finds itself in is by their own design, but nonetheless extremely sad. So thanks for watching this video. I hated making it. If you enjoyed it, please don't talk to me. Definitely do not subscribe or like it, but feel free to tell me never to do this again in the comments.